Now this is P.O.D. No, it's just P.O.D. Oh, for Pod's sake, it's just P.O.D. Or is it P.O.D.? Now I'm confused. P.O.D, damn it. Today, we're venturing back to 1997 to look at a PC game that I used to hear people talk about when I was a younger fella. This new hotness that ran on the newest Pentium PC hardware at the time, but I never got to play it because I was still on my old 486. And I wouldn't get a Pentium until a couple years later, and even that was just an underpowered hand-me-down from my older brother. By the time I was able to get my own capable PC, today's subject matter was just a distant memory until a decade or so back when it was made available on GOG.com, or GOG. And it's only taken me this long to finally get around to playing this one, so better late than never, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, so it's P.O.D, or P.O.D, short for Planet of Death. Released in 1997 for PCs via Ubisoft and designed with the Pentium MMX extension in mind, which nowadays is considered ancient technology, but again was considered cutting edge back in 1997, much like the Sega Saturn was considered cutting edge. That was cutting edge, right? I'm not too sure. Anyways, doesn't matter. Anyways, P.O.D or P.O.D, whichever you prefer, I don't really care, is a racing game where you pick a futuristic car of sorts and you race against other futuristic cars of sorts in a variety of futuristic earth-toned racetracks of sorts. P.O.D eventually got an expansion pack that added more content to the mix, and then everything was bundled together to give us P.O.D Gold. And P.O.D Gold features 16 different cars to play with, as well as 32 different tracks, each with a supposed unique theme and setting. At first glance, P.O.D almost bears a passing resemblance to another futuristic racing game on PC that we've sampled ages ago called Mega Race, or more specifically Mega Race 2, since that looks more like a proper racer than the first game, which was more like the DOS equivalent of a Tomy Turbo Racer. Nobody is going to get that. However, the big difference between P.O.D and Mega Race 2 is that there is no Lance Boyle in P.O.D, which makes Mega Race 2 the more enticing package on paper, but P.O.D plays way the fuck better than Mega Race 2, so yeah. Sorry, Lance. P.O.D is a fairly simplistic and straightforward racer. There's no futuristic weapons or pickups, there's no speed panels or anything of the sorts. There's a couple gimmicks here or there, but other than that, you just drive around the track, outrun the other racers, try not to crash into anything that will inflict damage, and also try not to drive off the road, as it were. You have some play modes. You can play a single race or compete in a championship mode, which is the game's story mode. Yes, P.O.D has a story mode where you're racing against a bunch of other racers on all sorts of tracks, with the grand prize being the last shuttle to escape this planet that's about to explode, hence the name Planet of Death. You can also do a custom championship run where you could pick the tracks to race in, presumably to make use of the additional content from the expansion pack. Of course, this game also had online play once upon a time, but that's apparently a thing of the past now. Or maybe there isn't. I'm sure there's a fix for that somewhere. They'll fix anything these days with patches and fan mods and things of that nature. I don't know. You can also toggle the difficulty from 1 to 3 settings, with normal and hard settings enabling vehicle damage, whereas easy does not. So if you don't want to deal with the vehicle damaging aspect of the game, and I don't unless the driving in your driving game is really exceptionally fun, which we'll get to that in a bit, you could turn it down and just bounce around shit without much consequence. The really interesting thing about P.O.D is that while it's more or less straightforward racing, the tracks themselves are usually anything but. Most of the tracks have various split paths, which in one way makes things interesting as you don't always have to play through a track in the same way. One lap you can go one way and another lap you can go another way. See which path leads to victory much quicker. The one drawback with this style of play is that some tracks will often tease an alternate path for you to take, but will instead have you crashing into a wall. There are quite a few of these instances, and it really got annoying after a while. A mini-map feature of sorts would have been nice to have, because otherwise P.O.D has no sense of direction to steer you right. I also feel the car physics are sort of questionable. For what it's worth, the controls are fairly simple to use and they work well enough. And I do like the ability to somewhat customize your car's attributes by way of distributing a set number of points of various stats, so it performs to your liking. But then there are times when cars don't feel quick enough or incapable of simple things like driving up slopes for ramps or hang time, which makes some tracks that require some long jumps to be a bit iffy, to put it mildly. Don't get me wrong though, driving is more or less fine when it sticks with the driving bits on the ground and doesn't try for anything more fancy. I don't know, maybe I'm missing a trick here and there's some hidden genius in P.O.D that I'm overlooking, but unless it's grounded, the game kinda sorta loses me. P.O.D is often touted as a somewhat atmospheric and unique looking racing game with all its dystopian settings and such. Of course you look at it now and it's not the most appealing thing. The vehicle models are somewhat unique looking yet also somewhat boxy. There are some visually intriguing tracks to be found here while others tend to blend together. And some of the sky textures, while interesting, seem a bit glitched, some of them not even filling the whole sky as it were. Possibly incompatibility issues. P.O.D was known to be a somewhat problematic program to run back in the day, but at the same time you have to understand that back in 1997, this was cutting edge stuff that wowed PC gamers into believing they were the master race, while the kiddies were stuck with their PlayStations and Nintendo 64s. And then you had Sega Saturn owners who also existed back in the day. I've got nothing against Saturn. It's a nice system whose games are obscenely expensive to buy these days unless you're going for imports. There's your trick there for collecting that system, kids. Go for the imports. Somewhat, kinda, sort of. Moving on. As for sound output, it's okay. There's a pretty mood-setting, ambiotic techno soundtrack that's actually quite appropriate for these sorts of post-apocalyptic racing games. I couldn't begin to tell you which one stands out from the bunch because they all sound the same to me, but it's pleasant-sounding enough music that I can almost forgive it. The sound effects are a bit harsh-sounding, with the engine sound being a particular case of ear violation central. It just sounds like the sound effects are breaking apart, like they're playing in a stuttered rate. I'd imagine this is, again, a compatibility issue, not something that was prevalent back when this game was new, but it's still worth noting. Maybe there's a fix for that. I know there's a bunch of fixes for a variety of issues, but I play this raw because that's what I usually do, I guess. I play something, I talk about it, and I move on with my life, or so it seems. Anyways. Overall, P.O.D is a game that I'd imagine would probably be best enjoyed by those who first played this back in the day and still harbor some happy memories of the game, while those who have never played P.O.D back when it was cutting-edge technology will probably fall in the mileage-varying territory. Long story short, it's a largely playable racer that's quite a bit of fun at times, but there are some quirks in either design or compatibilities that might hamper the experience somewhat for the player. Despite that though, P.O.D has its moments and it's a fairly enjoyable racer for fairly cheap. And honestly, if you could put up with some of the quirks or find the fixes that's available for this thing, there's a good time to be had with P.O.D, so sure, why not?